are now rocking with the hostess with the mostest. This is your girl, the natural hair gamer, Janae Benet, and we are on another podcast episode with another guest of Gaming for the Culture, where we feature maybe people you've heard of or unsung heroes of the gaming industry. And I'm really excited for this episode. Like, I'm excited for every episode because when I tell you every guest we have, it's a banger. It's a banger after banger after banger. I don't know how I do it, but I just do it, okay? And huge shout out to the guest joining us today. And I actually stumbled upon his work. I'm assuming it has to be like years. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's been a very long time that I've kind of been waiting for the progression of more teasers of his game. And he's solo deving a game called Sort of Symphony. And if you haven't heard of it, you're about to hear all about it right now. But before we get into that, I would love to introduce Steven. Steven, say hi to the people.
Thank you. That was a very nice intro. What was that at the beginning? Hostess of the. That
Thank you.
was
Thank you.
good. Very
Ever
creative.
since I started streaming, that's kind of been like my thing to be like, you are now rocking with the hostess with and it's just I don't know. To me it makes sense. It introduced myself. It tells people like what I'm interested in like a very short section. Cause people have been interviewing since then. They're like, what's your bio? What's your bio? Do you have a bio? And you're like, oh my gosh, fine. Like I'll write something about myself. So um yeah, that's pretty much
Very
that's pretty much how
artistic.
that works. Hmm. Yeah. So, Steven, tell us about you. Tell us, we were talking a little bit earlier about how you've always been involved in some type of musical aspect or, yeah, just in the arts in general, right? Music, writing, things like that. Give us a quick backdrop of how you got into music.
Yeah, so literally ever since I was, well, my earliest memory is three. My mom says ever since I was 3 months old, but okay, I'll take her word for it, like that kind of thing. I've kind of always been composing music because I had a little small keyboard that I had when I was a kid, and I was completely obsessed with it. So every morning after my mom would get me ready when I was like a small child, I'd like go downstairs and like just try stuff out while she was getting ready, and then like go to school and then come back, and then any ideas that I had in the day, I just bang them out or develop the ones that I had in the morning of that day, and then I just keep going, and just through that, I was able to then just kind of understand just the anatomy of just the way notes and music are structured, just from just a very raw standpoint. And that's how I became self-taught, um, because my relationship with music was kind of like I kind of grew up with it as I was learning more about the different combinations that sound pleasing to the ear, and then I'd hear things that I'd be inspired in, and then I'd want to try that out, and then make my own things, based on what I felt worked and felt resonated. So I was doing that. Then I started doing that digitally from the age of 10, 11, when I had my first laptop. Had a program called Z Maestro. I don't know if it still exists, but it was like the Windows version of GarageBand, because GarageBand you can only get that on a Mac, and I had a I had a PC, and I did try, but yeah, the best I could do was Z Maestro. So and I had the light version because I wasn't going to buy it at 11 years old. I didn't even have a bank account. So, so I just had to settle with the light version. Like you can only have like 3 tracks, but the boy, I used those 3 tracks like like my life depended on it. So did that all the way up until I was like 15. Then I downloaded FL Studio because I realized you could also get that for free, and I was like, okay, nice, more tracks. So then with that, I was able to then just really explore my musical ideas, while also I had like a larger baby piano to kind of get my musical ideas down. All throughout school, I was in competitions because me being self-taught, that and me being good at it from the age of like 3 months, um, kind of like put me ahead of a lot of people that were just learning how to do it around about that age, because that's where they start teaching you how to play piano and like guitar and like recorder by force in school. So at that point, I was kind of like I had like a head start, so all the teachers were recommending me for like different competitions and music cups, and through that, like I really just it really became a part of my identity because I was like, oh yeah, this was the thing that I was good at. So I kind of became more engrossed in that, and then I started composing just songs just for myself. Like I used to use music, and I still do to this day, but I would use music as a way to kind of just imagine kind of different worlds, and I'd like make entire narratives in my head based on the music that I would make. Similar to like film scores, which is why classical music is my favorite genre. And up until that point, I'd only really been doing that to myself. And then there was a girl in my sixth form, and she sat next to me, and I was talking, I had my headphones in. She was like, oh, what are you listening to? And I was like, damn it. Because listening to classical music is quite niche, so it's not something that bop your head to and like listen in the club. So I was like, all right, you got me. I have to show someone else like my music. So I tried to kind of like bravado it up, and yeah, I made this. Like this is yeah, like I'm a composer. I am that
Yeah,
guy. So
naturally.
yeah, and then she really liked it, and then she was like, oh yeah, you should be a composer, etc. and so stuff. You should make a YouTube channel. And I was like, oh, okay. And then because I've been using music as a way to kind of like imagine like kind of scenarios and narratives, I tried to like do this experiment with her, and I was like, oh, so what does it make you imagine? And then when she verbatim kind of described it the way I envisioned it when I composed it, I knew that wow, you could really tell stories through music. It's like music is not just a medium just to vibe to musically. It's like sonically. Like you can also use it as a narrative device to specifically evoke certain imagery. And that's when I knew that the music has a lot more potential to really be involved a lot more than it usually is in films and media in general as a storytelling device. So fast forward, I made that YouTube channel. I took her advice, and really took off with it. I went from making covers, because obviously you got to get the views, and then from there, I was dabbling in animation because when I reached 1,000 subscribers, I wanted to do something special for it, and then and also because I had been well, obviously I had been dabbling in animation because through that time period I was also imagining like a whole story around the music that I was writing. So it kind of made sense at that point to just make it about that when I reached 1,000 subscribers. Then I did. A lot of people liked it, but a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, you should improve, Steve." And this doesn't because obviously, like back then, my animation skills were not really that good. So, but I did try my best, and people saw that they're like, "Oh, yeah, it has charm," like on stuff like, but like it was like the nicest way of people saying that the animation side of it sucked without actually telling me it sucked. But I got it. I got the message. So I was like, okay. But like I could have just like stopped it there. And but like in my head, I was like, well, I got myself up to this far. There's potential for me to actually improve. And I would like to have seen like those stories come to life because apart from music, like I also like with the way I write is very philosophical, and I kind of like to kind of make little thought scenarios or thought experiments with the scenarios that I create, and which is what my first project Purpose is full of. So from then, I made an account for my first project, which was called Purpose, which is an animation project, and then the music covers that I was doing on YouTube was just ways to promote my Purpose project, which worked. And from then, I was around about second to third year in university, and I was initially studying law, but then I switched to music technology because being a lawyer, I like law. I would have done law, but the truth about law is you have to have passion for being a lawyer. Rather, like you can have passion for the law. I do, and I do, but or at least studying the law. But being having passion as a lawyer as a career is entirely different, and that's not something I really ever really had the passion for. Um, Although like stuff like contract law and like well, it has always been my favorite law. I scored quite high on that, and I still use it. It's kind of followed me everywhere I go. Especially in the career that I am right now. Um, so like it's always been a part of me that I actually cherish. But as a being a career lawyer, one of my lecturers were like, yeah, like this is something that not a lot of you will go through because you have to be passionate in this, you have to be commercially aware, you have to like attend all these like events and etc and be involved, and read all the papers about it, and that's like I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to know the law. And I was like, okay. So then I just last minute, deep into the course, I decided, okay, I'm just gonna switch, and I wanted to do an animation initially, but then obviously around about that time, my skills are kind of like not as good, so I got rejected, and then I ended up doing music technology because that was like the closest thing that I could do. So I was like, all right, I might as well just do this, and then just I don't know, get like an easy degree. And then because at that point in my life, like I was very encouraged by my family to get a degree. So I was like, okay, but like I'm just gonna like just socialize and study in exam season only, just like most uni students. And yeah, that's basically what I did with my exam. And also I used that as an opportunity to further the development of my project purpose. And then when I reached third year, I had to think of something to do for my final project, which involved the usage of music and imagery. And since I had already made the cinematic trailer for Purpose, which I was initially going to use for that assignment, they said I couldn't use that for the course because, well, it's like I've already almost finished it, so it's almost like I didn't really have to do it for uni. So I was like, okay, well, I have to think of something completely new. So then that's when Sword of Symphony was born, out of necessity for a university project. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this and just hand it in for university, and then just get back to working on Purpose. And then I made a social media account for it because people back then were following me more for my Purpose project, and I made like the first teaser for it, which eventually got featured on IGN after I had my interview with them. But I made my first teaser trailer for Sword of Symphony solely to let people know that, oh, this is what I'm working on. I'm not dead. I just need to do this for university. And I also used that to show my university professors kind of like what the concept of the game would probably like be like. It's music and like character action like combined, and this is basically what I'm going to go for. Um, and I kind of just uploaded it on YouTube, kind of like opportunistically, like okay, I can also show people as well. And then when I started making the combat for the game, the music combat, that's when the views really skyrocketed because at that time it was quite a novel idea. We're talking like March 2021. So like at that point, it was a very, very uncommon and still very novel idea. This is before the likes of Hi-Fi Rush and all the other things that had come after it, that kind of utilized that same concept. But at that time, it was very kind of still new, or at least very, very uncommon. So that's when it really skyrocketed in views because people were like, oh, it's actually you fight with the actual music itself, and it's not just like a hack and slash with just music VFX. Like most games that implement like kind of music characters, just the VFX that is just music, but like they could have done a lot more. So like that's kind of like why I was inspired by, which was like okay, I could do this, and then from that point onwards, it kind of became my career because then uh, promotional game sharing page on in TikTok called Game Dev Blaster shared my account, and it really blew up on TikTok. And then people were DMing me like, "Oh, I really love your game on TikTok." I was like, "What do you mean? I don't even have an account. Like, you probably got the wrong guy, but it's not the wrong guy because that's actually my project." So what do you? So I had to investigate, and then the owner of the page DM'd me like, "Oh yeah, you really should say something to these people. They really love your project and sort of stuff." So I was, at that point, I was one of them like, I'm not gonna get TikTok. They also feel like that's for the cringe people. But then I was like, but hang on a second. Like the only way to read the comments is if I get a TikTok account. So I was like, okay, you got me. You got me. I'll make an account. That I'll just make an account just to read the comments, and then
Yeah.
I'll probably delete it afterwards. And then people are like, oh, where's his TikTok account? Like, where does he post? Like, what page? And then I was like, you know what? I might as well just post my updates on TikTok. I mean, it's a video sharing platform, so I was like, okay, I might as well do that. So then I made the first video. It got like 1 million views, and then I was like, maybe it's a fluke. That million, I'll just post another one, and then see how it does. And then I also got 1 million views, and I was like, all right, I am now a
I've
TikToker.
never heard someone so reluctant about their success on TikTok. Oh man.
Yeah, at that and that it was that day that I became a TikToker. So yeah, then continue posting about the on my progress on that, and that's kind of it took full swing and lead up to where we are right now, where I'm that's basically the project that I work on. But in last year, well, not last year, but at the end of 2023, during September 2023 to March 2024, I realized that, well, this is actually my first project, Solar Symphony, and it's very, very anticipated. So I kind of have no choice but for it to do really well. Otherwise, that's like my career gone. Because I intend to like do more stuff after Solar Symphony and like around it, and like I don't want to have like this huge stain that my first project like kind of flopped because of lack of experience. And even though I do believe I can do it, like the real like it's the realistic is it like it's not the most realistic to assume that your first ever project will be like like flying off the charts in terms of quality, especially if you're in it. Well, you're not. Well, I mean, you're experienced, but not experienced to like make a full game from start to finish yet. So I was like,
Yeah,
well, let
but you're
me.
not like us, right? Like, you're not like us. Like, that's okay if that happens with you because, when you say that, oh, I don't expect my first project to go off like that. If I'm not mistaken, Neil Jones's first project, was kind of like that as well.
Hmm.
Um, oh no, we are. Oh, Neil, sorry if you're listening. I didn't forget the name of your game. I promise I didn't. I'm just gonna get the
Damn,
title.
she forgot the name of your
Right.
game.
No, Neil, I didn't forget the name. Aerial Knights, we never yield. Aerial Knights, we never yield. So, I feel like it was kind of like that too. Like he did a good job, and a lot of people
I
were
think I've
into
actually
it so
seen that
much
before.
that
Actually, yeah,
he
it's very good.
definitely. Yeah,
Mm.
and and now he has a sequel to it, right? And so like
Yeah, yeah.
he can choose what he wants to do with it. He can continue to world build, around the story because the story was really good, and he made a simple game for a reason, or a game that you can easily jump in and out of, right? Like as an adult gamer, he was like, I don't want this to be a thing where you have to play it, but if you want to watch an episode of anime, you could play an episode of the game, right? Like, and it's just
Mm.
20-30 minutes. You don't have to like dedicate 12 hours a day after coming home from work, or so he made a very specific game and is doing what it's supposed to do. And you're getting a lot of feedback on this game, and um, I think you're in a good space. I think you're in a good space for your game, like you said before Hi-Fi Rush, and it's even still different. The mechanics and the combat are even still different, and with the audience of like Kingdom Hearts and Sonic, like we were talking about earlier, those people are going to be on your game. And I think that I don't know if they will ever disappear. I don't think Kingdom Hearts and Sonic fans will ever disappear,
Yeah,
right?
one thing I know
Like,
about them, they have a lot of patience. Like they can
that
sit and wait,
too. That
especially
too,
for especially now. I mean, I'm a as a Kingdom Hearts fan myself. Like,
Yeah.
the wait for Kingdom
Of
Hearts. So, like,
course
we've
you
had
are.
no
Yeah.
news. Well, yeah, but we've had no news for like Kingdom Hearts 4
Yeah.
since the first trailer. But we're all here
Hmm.
for it. You know, like
Yeah.
we will sit here and wait till the end of time. But beyond the end of time, we'll latch on
Exactly.
just to just to hear some news. And yeah, now we
Exactly.
are passionate about that franchise. So I'm glad that a lot of those same people are also into my project as well.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's great that you have an audience, like, your target audience is also very patient, but they also understand that it's like just you. Are you open to having other people work on this, or are you so committed to like every single detail that you don't know if you would have teammates like currently?
Um, I'm not the most open to teamwork. The most I'd accept is like a contractor to work on a single task, maybe here and there, but
Yeah.
only if it's like a last minute is what I need to. It's not because I don't necessarily like teamwork. It's because from experience before in game jams and also like doing like hiring contractors in the past. um, there's a lot of management that's needed to ensure that the quality is at the specific type that you want it, to the point where you'll be sending a lot of documents and you'll be sending a lot of videos. Even like I made whole videos, I almost made like tutorials, like almost the way they're structured. um, and a lot of checking in, which in and of itself is not a problem, but because of the dialogue needed, to get one task done, and all that's needed to prepare, all the materials for that. As a person who myself has the skills to do it myself very quickly, it's almost
Yeah.
like I'm wasting more time working in a team than I would be had I
Facts.
just done it myself. And which
Yeah.
sounds a lot counterintuitive, because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, Stephen, like more people means faster." But honestly, it's like no,
No.
because it comes with its
Yeah.
own separate
System.
time.
Like,
Yeah, it comes with
yeah.
its own separate things that cost a lot of time, that if you had the skills you would have done it with it, like in the time
Yeah.
span that it would have taken for them to have started, because there's a whole lengthy kind of conversation process that needs to
Yeah.
be done before it even begins in the first place. But I'd recommend it to those who don't have all the skills, because that it makes
Mhm.
sense, because
Mhm.
then like to learn the skills from scratch, hiring someone else, it's a lot faster to do so, therefore you will get it done sooner. But if you have all the skills, like I've been like training myself to kind of have all these skills ever since
Yeah.
almost 7 8 years ago. um that's that's kind of all ingrained in me. I can do it from the same laptop. So for example, if I'm doing the music, especially for Sword of Symphony, that has me bounce between tasks a lot, so because I'll be doing the combat and trying to match it to the music, and then if I need edits to be done or the move to look different because it the gesture sounds different in the music, then I need to tweak that. But then if I want someone else to do that, I have to, first of all, that's like two separate people if I didn't know how to do both those
Yeah.
skills. So then
Yeah.
that's a lot. That's like two separate conversations, two separate documents, two separate, you know, um, liaisons happening at the same time. Which I mean, even yeah, that example you can have it done relatively like maybe a week or something. But with me, I just have to open up FL and like Range, which is the game engine that I use, two in like one tab over here, one tab over there, and then just bing, bing, bong, it's over there. Export, put it in there, change the animation because I also do 3D animation, and then that's done in like maybe an hour. So yeah, with that, yeah, and also I want to have my artistic vision be very kept very intact.
Yeah.
Because at this time now, I've shared what the environment's going to look like. It's literally my art style, but in 3D. Um, and yeah, for that it makes sense that I do it, for that reason. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. So you were mentioning the part of being on a team versus kind of just having it done, you doing all the parts by yourself. And I think the golden thing with you is that you can do it by yourself, right? You don't need to delegate like a task out to anyone because you've been building these skills. Like you're like the perfect candidate for like any job, right? You've been building skills since you were 3, right? And so now you could do that in your sleep, and now you've added on, your musically inclined skills, and now you've added on 3D animation and drawing and game development along with like coding, and on top of that you have like a legal aspect. Like that's that's a lot of skills that, have been kind of stacked on one another. And I know that when you start a project, it could be difficult to even get people to be like on board and like to see your vision and things like that. So, with the games that you have worked on in the past, even if you're not ready to talk about them, or if that they're completed, or if they're just kind of some like a project that you kind of just put to the side because this is kind of something you did with sort of symphony, right? Or purpose, something you did with purpose where you're like, oh, I'm gonna make this, and sort of symphony I'm gonna show to it was like a school thing, right? And then you
Yeah,
decided
yeah,
to
yeah.
like make it into something bigger because it got so much attention. What have you learned from like working on a team where, I mean, we've all had a group project experience, right? Where we're either doing all of the work. Some of y'all listening have done none of the work, but we're not judging. We listen and we don't judge. Um, but yeah, what have
Indeed.
you learned by working on a team?
So working in the team, I've learned that it's necessary, but it has its place when it's necessary. So, for example, most people will have the assumption that more people means higher speed of just the entire project being done. But what they don't realize is that having more people on the task like has its own unique time-consuming tasks that need to be done to manage the team to have the product done in the first place. So, for example, let's just say I wanted a 3D model animated from start to finish. Now, I would then reach out to a 3D modeler. Let's just assume, like, the concept is already done. Um, Even though that would be its own kettle of fish. But let's just assume that's already done. So we have the concept. I want it 3D modeled. Then I'd send it to a 3D modeler. Well, let's just assume I already know these people because that again is another kettle of fish to find these people. But I have my 3D modeler in on Discord or something. I reach out to him. I'm like, oh yeah, I would like the 3D model. Then I need to make sure I have a turnaround for that design. I am going to ask say what style I want. That already is like a very lengthy conversation, or with you typically do like a whole document. So now you're typing documents in Google Docs and etc. That you and time needs to be spent doing that. You obviously need to word it in a way that's feasible and understandable. So you're going to be writing that and or articulating it to that 3D modeler, because you need to be on the same mindset, on the same wavelength, on the same vision, and that requires work to get across. So then after you do that, then obviously you have to wait for them to do it. They probably have some other things that they need to do in their life, since your passion project is only really your passion project. Like at least to the maximum capacity of the essence of the passion of it. With other people, they're just it's something that they're interested in doing while also doing something else. Since the career is not their whole career is not their project. It's the task that they are doing in the project, which is a lot less scopious in terms of their degree of passion into it, and just their work in it. So they're going to be doing other things as well. Possibly when you reach out to them, then they reach out back out to you. Yeah, I can fill in my schedule. However, if you're lucky and they're doing it very quickly, then they're going to send photos back to you while they're doing it. And then you're probably gonna ask, oh yeah, like if you have a few changes, you're gonna be asking them for a few changes, etc. So then they gotta redo things, um, and that's something that you have to communicate to them with. They would have had to have gotten those images ready, so that takes a little bit of time for them to do, to then send, and then you open your DMs and that sort of stuff, and then like while it's being done, like you have to like these are all things that you have to like wait that take time, and then afterwards, you got to send it back to revisions. Let's just say you have to send it back to revisions, which is very common, by the way. It's not even like I'm adding things on purpose. They usually have to send it back to for revisions. Then they change it, and that's if you don't happen to have like a new idea on top of what they're doing already that would change everything, which is usually also common as well. But let's pretend that we're not doing that. Then that in of itself might take maybe like a week to get done, and that's just the 3D model. Now we got to animate it or like rig it. Then, assuming that 3D model is not a 3D generalist, you have to hand it over to another person, and then explain, the what how you want them to move, which determines how it's rigged, what parts need to be rigged, etc. Um, what the facial expressions, what you want to move, etc. So now you gotta write another document. You gotta write another document, etc. Do it again, and then afterwards.
Yeah, it's a
so
lot
so
of
now you've read it.
paperwork
Yeah,
catching,
yeah. Then
trying
you're
to
then you're
keep
writing
up
another
with
document,
people.
etc. And then after that, then you do the same process. Rigging, it's good that you don't have to do too much revisions, because after the document, yeah, okay, fine. Now you gotta get an animator to animate it, and then you gotta explain to them how you want them to move, and that's a large document. So you gotta tell them exactly how you want them to move, how you want them
But
to smile,
Steven,
how you want to do it.
Steven,
So it's like,
Steven, you studied law for a period of time. Do you not love documents? Like, you
I
know?
do,
Like,
but at the same time, like there's a time and place. I'd rather have my game done. So with me, for
yeah,
example, like in the solo dev experience, since I am able to 3D model and rig and animate, I can have it done in the same day because the conversations that extend the time periods and the waiting periods
yeah,
do not apply. So if you imagine like a really fast, if you imagine if you hired a really fast 3D modeler and then just only extracted the time in which they are working on that project for all those tasks, that's the length of time that it takes for a single solo developer who has all the skills to accomplish all those, which doesn't actually take half as long as it you need to manage, all those tasks, if you were doing it in a team.
but that's the
So
key word, right? Like, if you have those skills, because
yeah,
I
and I was going to get to that
understand.
as well, which is why
Yeah,
it has its because in the beginning I said it has its time and it has its
yeah,
place. Teamwork. Like if you're not able to do those skills, then it makes a lot of sense to offload it to another task because they have quite steep learning curves for some of them. So it will take even longer for you to learn the skills from scratch than
right.
it would take for you to get someone else to do it. Even though you will have to manage it, it's the trade off. But if you do have all the skills yourself, then it is a little it's a little bit of a disadvantage. You put yourself slightly at a disadvantage um, if you are doing that because the amount of work you have to do is almost as if you would might as well have been doing it yourself because every
Yeah.
step of the way it's like you're inputting, you're doing the
Mhm.
document, you're giving the feedback, you're doing that sort of stuff. So it's like
Yeah.
even though someone else is working on the modeling, you are working as well in that same space, in that same environment as it's being done. You might as well just model it if you have the skills. So if you do have all those skills and you're able to do them well and quickly, then it makes the most sense for you to do it yourself. And since that is the position I'm in, it makes the most sense to do most of the tasks in Sword Symphony completely by myself, if not all. And the reason why I say most is because there'll be instances where it is a little bit advantageous for, like one task to be done simultaneously to when I'm doing another task. So, for example, last year I had to handle a bunch of external stuff outside of game development, and I still needed things to be moved along. So that was like the first and only time I hired um, in 3D environment modelers to work on like one small section of the game, and it was actually that where I learned a lot of the things that I know about, how like the things required to actually manage a team and that sort of stuff. Because while I did it effectively, I learned very quickly that actually it's this whole kettle, it's its own kettle of fish. I thought that oh yeah, more people, faster, etc. I could probably even like keep doing it while I'm working on it. But because like I'm proficient in the tasks that I asked them to do, it was like I saw the time I would have been able to have done it myself. That I would that I saw being also included in the fact that I had to manage it all, and I was like, it's actually not as time efficient as it theoretically sounds. Although for other contexts where you don't have the skills, it is actually very time efficient. So that's kind of my relationship with that and my what I yeah how I feel about that in general.
Mhm.
And then I
Yeah,
can use my
I
essay
get
writing
that.
skills for other things like the story.
Yeah. I definitely get that. It's interesting because I guess like that makes me reflect on myself because I've been sitting on this game for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? I've been sitting on this game for like 2 years and I'm like, "Dang, could I have learned coding? Could I have learned it?" Because I tried to learn coding back in like 2017, and that's how I ended up getting into UX design because I was like, I like the techie side of it, but I almost went blind, like trying to stare at the screen, use my brain. Like it was just a lot going on, and I just couldn't do it. And I also know my skill set. And it's not that I'm opposed to learning a new skill set. I feel like I'd rather hone my skills and then um, see what integrates with the skills I already have. I had a really good conversation yesterday with the like game industry coffee chat where we were talking about the narrative design like game jobs, and as well as like QA and community management, and how like QA used to be like a stepping stone, and now there's so many narrative people, and like not even 8% of them are employed. And I just kind of keep thinking about how I have skills, I've learned new things, and I want to implement them. But like, do they intersect in some type of way? And not only that, but if I were to go into coding at this stage, right, after being 12 years in the industry, I would go into coding and I would start at level 1. Right? Like right I'm
Almost,
technically at
almost.
a senior level for like writing stuff, right? Maybe not even senior level for narrative design, right? Like maybe barely intermediate for narrative design, right? Just because I'm a good writer doesn't mean that I'll make like the best narrative design person. And so now I'm like, oh, I'm going to go into coding, or like, oh, I'm going to major in Unreal or Unity and like, C sharp. And that I would go back to being like junior level. And now I'd spend another 10 years like doing that. And then, the industry is going to recover, but now I'm looking at maybe non gaming jobs, to do like the code, to do the one thing that I learned. I learned how to do the game development because I wanted to make games. And now I'm like, you know, cybersecurity for like the health industry, which is not the worst thing you could do. um so something like those probably aren't even related, but those job
No,
career
but like
paths probably don't
save,
even match,
but
but
save for music, where like I've been learning ever since I was like a very early child.
yeah.
Everything that I learn know how to do now, I actually learned as I was doing the things that I needed them for straight away. So, for example, coding. I hadn't learned coding until mid Sword of Symphony, around about late 2022, almost 2023, because obviously the visual scripting interface I was using didn't need it. And even game development, I had only started that when I had the idea to start making a game for my previous project Purpose. And the good thing about doing it that way and not the way where you just learn studiously like a university student, just from start to finish everything you need to know about it, is that you are able to learn more surgically to the things that you actually need to use, and it sticks more because you're actively applying the things that you're learning on the fly. So even though like what I'm producing is quite expert level, I don't know everything about everything that in the trade that I'm doing. So for example, with coding, I understand that there's a lot of things I don't know about coding, but I know enough to make the game that I need to make, because I've been all the things that I've done every step of the way. Um, I've learned those as I've needed to learn them, and with that, you're able to learn actually very quickly, because you always know exactly what the next thing you need to learn is, and with that, there's no guesswork in terms of oh, so where do I start? Like from
Yeah.
the beginning of the game, from the beginning of the game, that what do I need? You operate from a point of what do I need? Oh, I need a model. So I need to learn how to 3D model. And then now when you're learning how to 3D model, you're going to learn how to make a character. You open up YouTube, how to make a character, how to make a 3D base mesh model human. So then you go to YouTube, and then now, you learn how to do that. You're already a foot into 3D modeling, and you have a foundation already that incorporates a lot of other things you'll probably be using 3D modeling for, like other asset design, just in you learning how to do 3D, just by you learning how to make a 3D base model human being. Because from that, you will know what it takes to make other assets, like a tree, for example, which is a lot simpler than a base human. But because there's tutorials online that give you that, you you know enough to make the other things as well. So it's like you learn one thing, and then other things open up to you, and after that, you now need to make it move. So then you search, um, how do I rig a character? And then you're learning how
Yeah.
to do rigging, and then you're learning how to do animation, and then you figure out, oh, I need to make him run, move, walk, jump. So then, and even though animation's the only one where like you can't really tutorial your way through the entire thing, but you will then understand that, okay, I need to learn how to animate, and I need to learn the fundamentals, and I need to get used to it. But with animation, it's like drawing, where you have to kind of grow with it based on um, the previous things that you did, and you improve along the way. But even with that, you will know what you need to improve if you're working on a specific project, because if your walk animation looks a little bit lanky, you know, oh, okay, you compare it to references, and then references can be anything on YouTube, like an actual person just walking, or like, other games where like they have like a walking animation. There's like a lot of video game reference animation YouTube channels that specifically, I follow one by the name of Alia. They have a lot of ones for that. And yeah, I look at that, how it's done, and then look at mine, and I'm like, okay, so I go frame by frame, what do I fix? And then you go at it from a very problem solving kind of problem solution kind of mentality. And then the solutions that you find open up your knowledge base that can be applied to other problems you run into, because you ran into the solution that kind of catches all those things. So then, and then that's how you progress. And actually you'll find that actually it's, even though I've been well, a solo dev, in terms of like, the skills that I need to, for like 7 years now, ever since I started
Hmm.
animating for my project purpose. It didn't actually, like, it didn't actually take me that long to finally be good at what I do. Yeah, actually, I actually picked it all up around like 2019, 2020. And then up until that point, I was just kind of honing my skills, um, and just patching up smaller gaps in my knowledge in terms of that. And then coding came later, and also 2D animation as well. But I treated those things the exact same, like, oh, I don't know, I need this, how, what do I need to do this? And then I search for it,
In
I
terms
apply
of
it, and then
learning,
it's very constructive the way you build your knowledge. So yeah.
I was just about to ask about the organization of it. So were you doing something and then you're like, "Oh, I need to like figure out this animation," and then kind of pause that and do the animation, or would you do kind of as much as you could do and then say, "I'm going to bring in the animation portion a little bit later once I have a better understanding."
No, yeah, the former, the former. Um,
Okay.
I learn, I realize I need something, and then I take the time to like learn it. So, for example, even with when I'm working on Sort of Symphony, I have a test file just for like specific mechanics, in and of themselves. Not mechanics like game mechanics, but mechanics like if I need. So, for example, if like I want to do air combos, and there's like
Mhm.
a enemy that like launches the enemy up in the air, and then I jump up in the air. You want your character to be on the same level as the enemy when you jump up, so then the attacks hit all the time. So therefore, you need a system where the character lerps up to the when you jump, and that part of the animation is playing. You need a system that lerps up to the enemy's level. So there, I have test files where I just isolate the specific detail that I need to make it work happen, where I test it out, and then I'm like, okay, it works, and then I apply it into the game. So that's how that's how you do it. I'm at the point right now where like tutorials can't really help me anymore, because the things I'm doing are quite
Mhm.
advanced and over the scope of most tutorials.
Yeah.
But once you get to that stage, you will actually be able to like handle doing it that way, because you'll have all the fundamentals you need from the stage when you were using tutorials. So yeah, to learn it from zero isn't as daunting as it seems. It's a journey. It's just it's like you're building a tower and that tower is like made up of just your knowledge, and you're building it along the way. So yeah, that's how you ought to look at it. Like everything that you need to know, you will know it at the time that you will need to know it, because you're going to, pick that up, and that's going to actually open a lot of doors and help you with the future things that you'll need. So yeah.
That's pretty cool. I have a question about, you were talking before we started recording about how like your mom says that you've been musically inclined or at least musically interested since you were about 3. And so when you went to college, university, you decided to study law and then you switched to something that was more, geared toward music. Was she surprised or was she like, this makes sense? It's absolutely you. Do your thing.
A bit
Because
of
it's
both.
every parent's dream, right? For to their
Hmm.
kid to be like a doctor, a lawyer, or if
Yeah, yeah,
you're,
yeah, yeah.
you know, yeah,
I mean, it was a bit of both. Like, oh, she was like, oh yeah, it makes the most sense, but she wasn't like initially wasn't like the most happy about it. Definitely took a bit of like getting used to my decision to do that at first, but you know, not
yeah,
too long after that, she was quite supportive of just my switch to do that. But I get that. But all parents want their children to do something that in which they're able to provide for themselves. So you know,
yeah,
switching from something that's tried, tested, and proven to something that um, is very entrepreneurial in nature, and therefore the risk is a lot higher. Obviously, it's daunting to any parent. So you know, with hindsight, I understand. Obviously, you know the fears when you look at your child and you're like, oh, that's different. And
yeah,
I personally don't. And then you look at your, and then obviously with the knowledge that our parents had back in the days that they were making livings for themselves, like this kind of stuff never even existed. So it's something that
right,
they can't really even like give solid advice on. So it's like they're just as new to it as much as us. So like the fear is even higher for them. But you just gotta stay convicted and show that it actually can work, and quickly as well, because
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's you don't wanna worry them too much. You gotta show them. You gotta have a solid plan
yeah,
that you're able to articulate to them and be like, yeah, that's how it will work. This is how it's going to be done, etc. And even then, like you still need to it's only until like you start showing the results that they come around, just like I imagine any parent would really, because you know as children, you know they look at us and they're like, oh yeah, he has these dreams and dreams and that sort of stuff, but
yeah,
like when is he gonna like actually like you know be serious and like actually like get some money and sort of stuff. So you actually got to show that your dreams actually can achieve that, and then when they can, that's when they become your best friend, and then it's like, okay, cool, nice.
yeah. And now you could be like, "Hey, mom, I'm gonna be a rapper. Thanks for your support." Right?
Well, I
I just
mean,
gotta practice a little bit, right? You just gotta practice a little bit, but you could just hop right in. Oh my goodness.
precisely.
Speaking of rapping, I'm not gonna ask you to rap. Don't worry about it. I won't ask you if you don't ask me, right? Like I won't.
I
We
was
just
ready. I was like,
yeah.
I was prepared. You gotta be prepared for anything, you know, especially in these kind of
Oh,
interviews. You gotta.
yeah, that's very true. So, speaking of rapping, the music industry right now, because you're very into classical, right? Like that's what um, you were like working on and listening to when you first got your push to upload some of your music. And a lot of rap and hip hop came from like a lot of classical, especially nowadays. It's kind of cool to see where the samples came from. Like, I don't know who you would probably know the name if I started throwing out some like music and saw that it was sampled. But I know the couple of Ti songs, of course, and Dr. Dre used to do that all the time. Do you feel like classical music is still influencing like hip hop and rap beats, or have we kind of strayed away from that in your
No, I
musically
think it's. I
inclined
think there's
opinion?
always gonna be a. I think there's always gonna be a space for it, especially now, solely because of the film industry. Because the film
Okay.
industry still uses classical
Okay.
music in their film score. There's a lot of like neoclassical music in film score music that kind of like makes its way into musicals, and then you know that's what people are. You know, it's like it's a timeless genre. And very recently, I've started seeing a lot of rap music that incorporates classical instrumentals and then puts like a hip hop beat over it, and that actually does very well usually. Like it's you know
Like hip
people
hop
really
ballet. I think that's where they would mostly use that.
potentially. I haven't actually heard of that, but
Ah, yeah, it's a
nah, but
thing.
like. But yeah, no, like this for example, a lot of you know, if I do listen to stuff like that, um, instrumental wise, sometimes like on YouTube, I see a lot of like popular stuff, mainly like taking samples from Naruto, like the soundtrack from that, um, and
Yeah, absolutely.
some yeah, and sampling that, and yeah, I feel like it's gonna get a little bit more popular because it's unique in the homogeny of how hip hop sounds. You know, hip hop is mainly beat focused, obviously with like a bass, But because there's a lot of that, um, my, one of my lecturers when I was doing music technology said that the way music moves in society is on a pendulum. You know, like one thing is unique, and then it gets very popular, and then the pendulum swings over to something else that's a little bit antithetical, but it's, now it's like now it's become the new niche, and then that becomes popular, and then it swings over here and it swings over there. So as long as that's the case, which is actually very true, um, that's why, like, kind of old rock punk music kind of like makes its way back into like more goth circles of like, of the today. And yeah, I think because of that, pieces of music will always find their way back in the limelight. But in terms of classical music, because it's such a staple in the media industry, just in general, anyway, um, I don't think it will ever die, really, as long as it's being used for films and soundtracks, which people, a lot of people love it just in general. Hans Zimmer is very famous for the Inception soundtrack to this day, and the Dark Knight soundtrack, which a lot of people use as like
Did he
motivational
also
workout
do
music.
Sonic? Didn't he do the Sonic?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Dang,
Well,
I
I
was
don't know if
just
he did
listening
the.
to something and I saw his name. I was like, oh
He might have.
no,
I haven't
Sonic
seen.
is
I haven't seen
somebody
who's
else.
composed. I haven't seen who's composed the Sonic soundtrack for the
It's not
movies,
him. Hold on, let's.
but I don't
We
think
gotta look
it's.
it up.
I mean,
I
he's
was looking
in.
at
He's in a lot of
something and I
things.
just
He's in.
didn't
He's in Kung Fu
expect to
Panda.
see him. I
Yeah,
didn't
he's
expect to see his
in.
name. Lion King.
Yeah,
Lion
yeah,
King. No,
yeah,
no,
and
no, no. That's the old one.
the new one, the live action. Did he not
Is it?
compose for that?
Yeah. Is it?
Maybe.
No. I don't know.
But I know
Anyways,
that
let's not
he.
get into it because
Yeah.
I'm wrong. Let's not get into that because I'm completely wrong. But yeah, so you know, speaking of music being a pendulum, now I can't stop looking it up. Now I'm like, now I need to know. No, 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 no. Cut it off. Cut it off. Okay. So speaking of music being a pendulum, Fred Hammond was doing an interview with a stand-up comedian, and like he does other media called Kev on Stage, and he was talking about how gospel and R&B would kind of borrow from each other. So like if there's less R&B, there's going to be less of that gospel, less of like that modulation and stuff happening, which is kind of like a thing that happened. But I do think it's coming back. I think it's the same thing that's happening with gaming because making a game has become more accessible, and just like publishing music has become more accessible. There's so much stuff that people, can go a whole lifetime without ever hearing or playing. So I do like to hear that, we will still be influenced by like classical music. And are people still making classical music? I know that's probably a crazy question to ask because it has to kind of be like classical rock, right? Like it has to have been around for some years. Like, are people making new classical music like the Looney Tunes soundtrack, like the Tom and Jerry soundtrack? Like, are
Mhm.
people doing that or are they doing like renditions? Like I need to know. Like
Yeah, no,
I don't
they absolutely are. But the thing about classical music
okay.
is even
Okay.
it's gone for its own evolution. So most people think classical
Okay.
music is just, this homogenous sounding kind of genre. However, if you compare classical music of today, which is neoclassical music, to classical music back in the Baroque times, it's very different in the way, in just the musical movements, the structure, the kind of chords they use. Um, it's very different back
Okay.
to how it used to be. It actually used to be very like
Give us
like an avid
some
classical music
examples. Name
person
an
would be
artist
able to tell the difference.
in case people wanna like listen to it. Give us an example. Like
So like if you compare Mozart to Hans Zimmer, for example, even though they use the same instruments, the musical techniques are vastly different. Hans Zimmer is more minimalist, but in a more grandiose way, whereas the same four chords will be used as like a riff, and that's borrowed from kind of rock music or like more popular music. So in a sense, classical music, well, neoclassical music has adapted to the times with the rise of pop music and more simpler um, ways of structuring music. Whereas back in the Baroque ages, or back in when Mozart and Beethoven were creating music, their music would be way way more dynamic with different passages and different acts even in the same piece, and hence why a standard classical music piece would be like 45 minutes. Like if you listen to like Rachmaninoff's music, um, like that would be like almost an hour long. Whereas classical music now is kind of adapted to a more modern audience that is used to listening to pop music. If you listen to most pop music, it's very centered around one key, and usually it modulates just off that one key, similar to most neoclassical music of today. And you hear that even in game music, in film music, specifically of the today, and that's how it's evolved. But and that's why classical music I don't think will really die, because it's like a unique sounding thing that can be adapted to the modern to any well I personally believe any age really, because just as we were talking earlier, just that's the fact that it can be like a beat can be thrown over it, and then now that's like a like a
Yeah.
hip hop classical music beat. They even did that in the Miles
Yeah.
Morales games. Um, what they did exactly that actually, and it's kind of like its own thing, and a lot of people like the soundtrack from that. Gives it like its own unique spin on something that is quite homogenous in of itself, instrumentally wise, like like rap music and that sort of stuff. Since um, most of the I guess the creativity in the music is more like in the lyricism and the rhyme schemes and the cadences and etc. Like the stuff in that. So yeah, I think it always has its place, and people are definitely composing it still today, especially for films, and that's where it's most famous for films, for game music.
Ooh, speaking of indie games, this episode is brought to you by the Project Apodum review that is listed on my YouTube channel. It's an RPG MOBA, and can you play it by yourself? Yeah, I couldn't, but that might be a skill issue. Anyways, I don't want to spoil too much or take up any more time. Click on the link in the description after the episode to learn more about Project Apodum, and don't forget to follow Stephen Ddungu. We cannot wait for his music theory video game. Okay, back to you guys.
That's really cool. Yeah, I in the act of producing this game, I have an audio person and he's really great because he kind of understands what I'm saying even when I don't because I just know what I like. And I we were going through some songs and I was telling him about the Bug Snacks. I don't know if you've heard of Bug Snacks or even played it, but it's a game that was released 2021 and it's by Two Horses. I really got to get better at my names. And it's about you're like a grumble. It's kind of like a Muppet because they're like
Hmm.
kind of fuzzy, and you're on an island. And every time you eat a bug snack, you turn into it. So there's like a strawberry bug snack, and so like your arm will turn into like a strawberry or something. And I really like the soundtrack. Like, and the game is kind of like baby's first horror game or like thriller, because it's not very scary, but think like Billy and Mandy, but less, you know. So, um, I just really like the song. And so when he was going through it and kind of like asking questions, he was like, "What does this feel like?" And I was like, "Whoa." Okay, well, like let me think about it. Like let me think about why I really like it because the game puts you at ease, and then something freaky happens, and then you're like, "What?" And so I really like that portion about it, and so it's pretty cool, like to see music in a way, especially with sort of symphony, right? Where you're like, it's to set like the tone and to have you to be imaginative and really immersed in the feelings. Like, yes, we know when we're watching a movie, a crescendo happens. We're all like, "Oh my gosh," or like, it gets suspenseful and things like that. But for like your game to because if this is something that you've always wanted, right? You like when, like for you, you said that music is kind of like reading a book, right? It's going to take you somewhere else. It's going to have you feel these emotions and imagine these things. And I think that's really amazing. And so for you to like give us a piece of that, to experience it in sort of symphony or, even in this other game that has no name, right? This the game is what I'm gonna call it, right? No copyright intended with the rapper. But this other game that you have, it's pretty cool to like listen to the music and see that's a very big part of it. And I miss kind of like the cartoons where it was just kind of all music and there wasn't like a lot of dialogue because you kind of had to follow along. You did have a visual aspect of it, right? And you did kind of just have to follow along and really feel that music and really feel like what the characters were feeling through it. um, Even in like later shows like Dexter's Laboratory, they sometimes didn't use like any sound unless he was like him scuffling across his floor, or sometimes they would have like a minute or two with like no dialogue. And then just being in that ambiance is really cool. So that's why I'm really excited for Sort of Symphony and the game that you actually when did you release that? Was that the
That was like 5 to 6 days ago.
Okay.
Hmm.
So like the ninth. The
Yeah,
ninth
around about the
or
9th or the
the
10th.
8th of January. Okay, great.
Something around there. I remember it was like very late in the night so it was like between the 2 days of like the
Nice.
9th and the 10th. It was like the 9.5 out of 10th of January. I uploaded
Okay.
that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and watching that trailer and we were talking about the words kind of being also interactive. They're not just there for reading. And I think it goes very quick. I'm really excited to play it and see like the game kind of feels like a quick time events with you like reading and then having to like kind of interact with the words. It feels like a quick time events, but you said that there's going to be different parts to it. So I can't wait to see kind of like how it all fits together. I'm a fan of like a collage. Like, I don't know if you ever watch Bob's Burgers, but Bob's and every cartoon does this where they have different art styles like for the different scenes and stuff like that. Or the Spider-Man movie did that. I don't even remember how many
Yeah, actually, yeah, yeah.
people contributed to it. It was like a lot of artists and I was really impressed. I really like stuff like that. And so when I get a version of that, especially like for different games, game mechanics and things like that, I like it cuz it feels like you can have it all. You can have it all in this one game. Back when, you know, games were bought in a different in a different way. I used to buy 3 games, right? I used to have like my long-term game and then like my like replayability game, so like maybe like a fighting game, so it'd be like a story, a fighting game and then like an arcade game. And I'm really excited because it seems like the game they've created um does that. And I'm also really excited for Sort of Symphony because I've never been a fan of like Kingdom Hearts.
Mm.
Um which, y'all, please don't stop listening just because you heard that. I just wanted to be honest. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think Simple and Clean is a banger, and I also um,
A part of my soul just died right
Face My
now.
Fears.
I'm
What'd you
leaving
say?
this. I'm leaving
No,
this interview.
don't, don't go. Yeah, don't go. Like, I think it's cool. I wasn't gaming when it came out, and so when like 3 came out, I
Any Kingdom
know
Hearts
like
fans watching now
the
converted, don't worry.
hopefully we'll see. And then for me just to like jump in at 3, I felt like I know a lot of people did, but felt like a little bit like a poser. But Face My Fears, I used to sing that all the time. I was like, this is such
Yeah,
a banger. So I think this is like
you
my
should play the
adjacent
game.
to that community. Hmm?
You should play the game.
I'll see about it. I can try to play it. Um, It just seems really long.
Yeah, no, it's when you get to 358.2 days, just get a napkin. You'll be crying a
Okay.
lot.
Really?
Not that I cried, obviously, but
Right. No, you didn't, but I
no, no,
definitely
no, no.
will.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I will. I'll see. I'll see about it. I just when there's like a lot of hype around games, I kind of take back from it. And I'm not saying that it didn't deserve the hype, okay? Because I did that with Spider-Man too. I really, really wanted to play Spider-Man. And they
Mhm.
came out like same time, right? Like I feel like that was around the same time. And I really wanted to play, but there was like so much. And I really love Spider-Man. Like I went to Disneyland in Paris and I was like, Spidey! Like I was yelling and like, French people were like, what's wrong with her? It's just a guy. And I was like, Spidey! And he like waved and did the web slinger thing. And I lost it. But I really love Spider-Man and so like I just have to catch up on those games because there was so much around it that like I didn't want to get sick of it, right? Because I didn't want to play it and then hear about it and then maybe I'm online and then there's like a spoiler and I mean you can't really spoil Spider-Man like he wins, you know what I mean? But there like I've kind of avoided a lot of like the gameplay and even for like the Miles Morales one too, like all these
Damn.
years, so like I can play it by myself because I just really like it and I really want to enjoy it. And so yeah, Kingdom Hearts maybe because Toy Story will get me, right? Like if
Yeah, that's in there.
you
That's in there.
like Toy Story will get me. So that's why I'm kind of like, well, can I
And the way
just
they done the
play like
graphics,
that
like it's
part?
like proper, like it looks like it would
Wow.
have been in the film. So it's
Wow.
if
Okay.
you go through that, it's
Okay.
almost as if
Yeah.
you're literally playing
Yeah.
the movie effectively.
Well, that's all you had to say. No one's ever said that.
There we go. Look at that.
Nobody has ever said that. Like that's all you
Mission
had to
accomplished,
say.
guys.
I'm gonna get to it. So, yeah, play a little bit of that. I always like the jokes. I always thought they were kind of funny, right? The Kingdom Heart jokes that everyone makes about like Donald and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, and I do love Goofy. Like I love Disney, but I was like Kingdom Hearts just seems like a lot. And why is this guy? You know what I mean? With a 27-inch bust down. Why is he so angry? Like with the middle part, like why is he so upset? So, um, to each his own, for sure, for sure. But I want to ask some questions from the law perspective. Your law background, your legal
Of course.
background perspective. So right now, you're producing two games, or are you producing one game, or do we not have an answer for that?
Well, I'm producing one game, but I produced a game while I
Right.
was making that one game, which is
Correct. Okay.
obviously, the game. The
Right.
game.
Okay. So we have two games. We have a reveal trailer that came out 5, 6 days ago, and then we have sort of Symphony that's taking its time because it's gonna get the love, care, and attention that it's making. So, with you being an indie developer, solo indie developer,
Hmm.
and the current state of the industry, right, with the layoffs, I've lost count with how many layoffs there are. Excuse me, and how many studio closures there have been. And as a journalist, I'm noticing it, right? Because honestly, there's always been a shortage of like journalism. There's always been a shortage of like social media managers, community developers, but now there's like a shortage, like people who are getting it, um, QA, narrative design, things like that. So but we're losing a lot of indie developer studios. I am not sure if we're losing a lot of indie games. So that's going to be one question right there is it still possible for these studios to make a game depending on the general contracts that they have with the bigger studios? And two, how is it being an indie developer in this current climate? Like you have a game that has so much hype, that I think you would do well. You're already doing well like by yourself, but let's start with the first question. and then we'll get to
Okay.
that one because that one's a bit more loaded. I have like, but yeah. So can we, with the indie developer, with the indie studios that we've lost, is it possible that they can still release those games, or just knowing what you know, do you think it's just like we'll never see those games and those people have to make like a new game that's maybe kind of, are they even allowed to do that? Are you even allowed to make a doppelganger or like a parody or like a cousin of a game that you were making with like a bigger studio?
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's very case by case basis because
Uh-huh.
different studios will have different contracts with different um, partners, if you will, and most of them will probably have non-compete clauses that do not allow you to work on anything else, um, or at least require you to work on the game as first priority. But non-compete clauses are very common, so you can't work on anything else while you're working on the game that probably would compete with that, or just in general, like if you're working on anything else that is not of commercial value, you can't do that while working on the specific project that you're contracted to do so. So if a studio has that kind of clause in their contracts, then obviously they can't work on, no cousins. It's gonna be a very small family.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
So then if
it's gonna be an
that,
only child situation. And in terms of games still being able to be released in the current indie space, um, it will depend on the faith that the investors or the game publishers have in the success of the project. And most contracts will have it so that the studio, not the studio, the partner, whether it be like either the big company or whatever, or the investor or whatever is providing the financing, most contracts will have it so that they can end the deal, and it's up to their discretion. Obviously, provided they give reason, but even if they might not even need to give a reason, it completely depends on the contract. And with that, if they see little faith in it, that probably could be one of the things triggering a lot of the layoffs happening so quickly. To be honest, since not that much really is in the way of them being able to drop a studio, um, and also yeah. So in terms of but then there will be also surviving clauses in contracts. So if a contract ends, there's typically a section in a contract that has, it's either a section or it will be specifically in certain clauses where it will stipulate that certain that clause will survive the termination of the contract. But usually there's a section that stipulates the parts of the contract that will continue in perpetuity after the either the cancellation or the termination of that contract. And oftentimes it will include it's not often that it includes as non-compete, because then that's a little bit overreaching, um,
okay.
and it's generally not good business practice to do that. But yeah, like some things will stay in there. Maybe like if you do end up, if the studio does end up working on the project alone or self-funding it, they could still be entitled to whatever revenue they make out of
Yeah.
the project, and it would still be like proportional to the amount they make in terms of the percentages. So, like I've seen contracts, because when I studied law, we studied different agreements in different industries, and the ones that I picked are the music and the game industry, that has a lot of very stark similarities. In fact, they're like some of the contracts are even identical in terms of structure. And yeah, you'll see that quite often sometimes, that the revenue share will still be there, because I mean, to a degree, they have still invested into the project, so they'll still want the return if it happens. So they if so because of that, they would put it in the contract that that is the case, or at the very least that they get the amount that they invested back somehow, the principal. So
So Okay. Ooh,
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then there's also things like whether they're allowed to negotiate. Well, there's also right of first refusal, which is basically where if you if you have another project, you have to negotiate with the person who you're contracted with first to see if they would
okay.
take it. They have to be first. They have to. That's why it's called right of first refusal because they have to refuse first for you to then negotiate with others and that sort of stuff. So that's I've seen that a lot in I've seen that a lot as well. Personally, I'm not a fan of that. I mean, no one is, but yeah, it's in there as well to ensure. Well, I imagine it's to ensure longevity, obviously, but yeah, that's something that studios may. So if they want to make any cousins, for example, grow that family, then yeah, they're gonna have to stay faithful to the the partner that they started with,
So
which
what
obviously has its
happens?
place. Like, but obviously in like gaming
Yeah.
contracts, you don't want to do that.
Let's say that there's an indie studio that's just doing really, really well, and somebody wants to acquire that indie studio. How can an indie IP protect itself while getting the help or the boost that it needs, or should it just stay independent? Like like what can they protect themselves? How? Or should they just be like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing?
Yeah, so on the topic of licensing, but in terms of for any indie studio, when it comes to partnering with any kind of partner, whether it be a publisher or an investor or a company, um, yeah, one of the things you want to stay true to if you do want to protect yourself as much as possible is obviously look at protecting your IP, make sure there's nothing in there that relinquishes any authority over that. Then you want to look into licensing powers. A lot of publishers, especially, and they need the licensing powers because they're your publisher. They need to, be able to uh, have, if it's for example Xbox Game Pass, or if it's just like different things. Your publisher will be basically responsible for managing that. So you will see that they will want to handle that. However, do make sure that you have the final say. That's how you protect yourself when it comes to that department. Or if you actually want to just, you know, still be in control of as much things as possible, being, and to have like the same amount of administrative privileges that you would have if you were indie, like solo completely, then at least have the final say for the licensing. Um, and then when it comes to stuff like well, those two are mainly the main things in terms of like IP and like where it goes and etc. But yeah, the things that I mentioned before, like right of first refusal, non-compete, um, those things are things that you will have to look at your own ambitions in the partnerships that you go into and decide for yourself how much control or well freedom, if you will, you relinquish. Also, the IP itself, like the creative freedom over it, the approval process of each milestone. You will want to have that as flexible as possible. Um, so try to negotiate something that is in your favor because at the end of the day, it's not the publisher that's developing the game, it's you that's developing the game, and therefore only you really know how long you can work on it and the circumstances that you'll be facing along the way, and thus what is required and how long each requirement takes to complete. Was just to make sure that um, you're honest with your terms and you engage in the negotiation. Like they might send you a term sheet, but that's part of the negotiation. You need to put your terms in there, and yeah, be aware that if you sign with a publisher, there is a revenue agreement in which they will usually recoup more than you recoup for a time period before it flips in your favor, which is often the release window. They don't design it to be like that, but it's the buy that way naturally. So if you are a whole studio, be prepared that you might not get as much money as the project makes. If you sign with like a publisher who invests a great deal in your project, so negotiate around that revenue sheet so that you still get something that's advantageous to you in the long run, because they will at first suggest something that is in their favor most of the time, so that they make their principal back plus the profits. It's up to you. Always remember that it's completely up. They will not do things in your favor for you. You have to do it. So that's basically just the gist of it, really. That goes with everything. Even what terms in any contract survive the end and termination of the contract. Be sure to see if that's the case. And also, they do also, in terms of information about your relationship with them that you want to publicize, or just talking about the game in general, larger projects will typically want to control the release of any information about the project that they're working on you with. So just make sure that you can still be able to speak about your project, but if it's something about the specific the relationship between you and them, make sure that those two things remain kind of separate, so you can still update people who ask about it. Um, yeah, just like it's all following the same theme, really. Like once you have the mindset of just go in and make sure that there are terms in there that don't screw you over too much, you'll start noticing in each contract terms that would be like, oh, that's a bit overreaching. And yeah, and also with the licensing thing, I forgot to mention, right? I did mention it, but I think it wasn't included, that you need to have the final say, because a publisher will want and need licensing rights to do its job, basically. However, you will need the final say on who what comes of that, basically. But yeah, that's basically main the main things to look out for. There's obviously more, it depends contract to contract, but those are the main things that I've seen most often, throughout me studying this kind of stuff in university, and also when I was offered deals during late 2021, when I was offered a lot of, well, publishing deals for Sword of Symphony.
Ooh, that's really good advice. We're definitely gonna have to clip that and send that out to the masses so they know that you're not only a musical genius, but you're also pretty knowledgeable when it comes to the law. So, if that is how you can protect yourself as an IP, do you think if you have to go through all of that, right? Somebody who doesn't know, in this current climate of what the gaming industry is like, do you think it's worth it to try to look for a publisher? Um,
Not if you don't need one. So when I say you don't need one, I mean if you are capable to finance yourself. Maybe you're not financing yourself currently, but you have the possibility to. Maybe you've grown like a community in which you can do things on the site to monetize your progression of your project. So for example, with me, it's Patreon, and also diversify a little bit as well. If you're able to do that in ways in which you can fund yourself, and you also have all the manpower to create the project, or if you're like me, a solo dev, I do, just in the fact that I know how to do all the things that I need to work on the game, then you realistically don't. And also marketing as well. If you have a strategy that works, um, or strategies that you will try out, which you project to work, like I do, then you don't really need a publisher, because a publisher is only really important in those areas: finance, outreach, and manpower, which ties into finance. Um, and I would recommend that if you don't need one, you don't go with one, because at that point, you are going to then just be um, offloading a bunch of the profits that you would really be rightfully yours. Seeing how if you partnered with a publisher, they wouldn't really be doing anything that you're not already doing. Because you see, the thing about publishers is they mainly actually want to sign with people who or studios who kind of already have it figured out. That way, it's the least risk. I mean, I get it because obviously it's the least risk. It's a good business standpoint, and they offer small things, and then they beef them up and be like, yeah, yeah, we could really help you with this, and also stuff like localization, and which is fine if you need those things. But very rarely publishers will reach out because I have a lot of friends in the industry. Many of them are solo devs, and they have promising projects, but they don't get publishers reaching out to them because that's the thing. Publishers will often read. They have whole A&R departments to reach out to you. They don't. It's never really the case. Well, I mean, at least I don't know because I've never really had to do it the other way around. But
Has
I've
no
never
one
really
reached
seen
out
it the
to you?
case.
Or
No,
has
no,
no oh,
they've
they've
almost all
all.
reached out
Oh
to
my
me.
gosh.
They've almost all reached out to me. But
Okay.
I've never had it the other way around where I've had to reach out to them because they're not that's not really how they choose their partners. They are the ones who go out and they decide who they want to pick. So with that being said, they are always looking for people who kind of have it already figured out on their own because it's the least risk to invest in. So if but the thing with that is, if that's the case with you and you generally have it all figured out yourself, then it's kind of a disadvantage to you if you sign with a publisher unless you really need something that they offer that you don't have. Like for example, if there's no way you can access localization for some reason and the publisher's offering localization, then okay, sign with that publisher, get the localization, negotiate terms that are fair according to the one thing that they're offering. Obviously, don't make the revenue split like so in their favor if they're only offering localization, but then you just sign with the publisher to get that localization. But if you're capable of doing that too, which you probably would if like you're already getting a lot of traction, like you've got a community, etc. You have connections. Then since the publisher isn't really doing anything, they're kind of just taking revenue that they didn't really even provide value to earn if you sign with them. So yeah, only really sign with a publisher if you need it. Don't just do it. And also, if you if you're thinking about signing it because you want the money or the financial stuff, always ask yourself, can I actually get that myself first? It's tempting because they do offer quite a lot of money, but and it's very tempting. You see all the zeros that could possibly be in your bank account. Like it will obviously lighten a lot of the load, but it's a double-edged sword. It's like it comes with the light comes with the dark. And the dark obviously is the amount that they'll be expecting back, and obviously all the terms and the contracts that may not be in your favor that they'll add in there. Um, that will probably be that is commonplace for all publisher and even investor contracts. So
With you
it's
talking about
at
the
a point it's not really
investor,
worth it.
with you talking about the investor side of it, what happens if you just don't meet those terms? Like, what happens if, like, the game was really promising and then, whether it's the studio's fault or it's the publisher's fault, but it just doesn't do as well? Like, what happens with all like the money promised? Like, are they just kind of like, great, you're indebted to me forever? And like, is it kind of like albums where you have to make 4 or 5 albums for the publisher until you're like released from a contract? Or will they just like drop you and like keep your IP? Like, what's the collateral damage?
It will usually say so in the contract. Everything that happens with that. Um, the thing about a contract is that it's supposed to outline, those things. So one thing that I see most of the time is that um, any revenue connected to the game that you get goes to them, and any money that you make from maybe other partnerships that you make with that also has to go to them, and it's counted as revenue. That's usually what I see a lot. That I've seen a lot in the term sheets of the publishers that have reached out to me, and also just studying this like when I was studying law in university in general. Though I'm mostly referencing from when I was studying law in university, since we kind of took a look at these contracts and were able to see for ourselves. like how it's structured. So I can definitely confirm that it's similar, since these are publishing companies and I study publishing companies. So yeah. It depends on it's case by case, but most likely it'll be a case where any money your company makes will you'll probably either have a payback schedule scheme somehow, or any money that you make that is connected to that project will just have to go to them. Um, yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Oh,
usually the latter is most favorable because then it's like, oh, they just have to wait until they get their money really from that project. But some are like, oh no, well, we want to make this amount by this date and then this amount by this date. And then if not, then negotiation can happen where um they figure out a kind of schedule to make the principal back, because they usually typically really want the principal back at least because that's the investment in the first place. So then it's not like a complete loss on their side. And then if the expected profit isn't met, then it's just a matter of they have to wait for it. But yeah, that's usually common.
okay. Wow. Once again, this is not legal advice.
I
This
mean,
is
it
just
isn't, but it is.
something.
It's like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I studied this because obviously I'd studied law, so I mean, it is
yeah.
the truth. But I just don't have
The
a
truth,
fancy,
truth.
I just don't have a fancy certificate saying I am a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's literally the only difference.
Okay, let's get back to the artist side. You said something really interesting earlier. I'm not an artist myself, but after befriending them and, listening in on some of the artist community conversations, I hear a lot that like drawing hands is the worst. But for you, that's one of like your better parts, but you actually don't like to draw noses too much. How did
Yeah,
that happen? Like every artist that I'm like, most of the time they're like, "Oh man, hands are bad. Hands are the worst. Like hands look funny. Like, I'm just gonna do this for the hands or something else." And you're like, "No, that part's great. It's the noses that trip you up. How come?"
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, the way I draw, I don't draw like super uber photorealistic. So I do cut a lot of corners when I'm drawing hands.
Ah,
So it kind of makes my job easier. That's probably why I like hands. But with noses, yeah, it's very finicky for me. Like it's one thing that you kind of have no choice but to kind of get right, even if you're cutting corners. So yeah, like a bad nose will just look very, very noticeable.
maybe
You can
that's why
get
all
away
the
with just you can
statues
get
don't
away with
have
like a
noses.
finger. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can get away with like a finger, just slightly kind of like it's just a hand, but a nose on the face, yeah, that's no one's getting past that. Like if the nose looks funny, especially if you're doing like art that is like a fan art of like something, and then it's like it looks a certain way. That nose will literally change the entire character. So yeah, it's I just try and I cut as many corners as possible when I'm drawing the nose. I just kind of do the shadow underneath the actual tip of the nose, and then just do like a line. And
Well,
then,
I
and then,
think that's
well,
the
sometimes
cool
if I'm
part.
feeling a little optimistic, I'll actually, do like, maybe like a little curve to show like the actual, to show the actual depth of the nose. But then that's like the furthest I usually go. But yeah, one day I'll overcome that one day. Just not yet, obviously,
I
because
think that's the cool part though, because it's your piece. Like no one can tell you what that your like character's nose is supposed to look like. Now Super Smash Bros. When they were making that hand come through, I'm sure they had very, very like, strict and maybe a bit of panic attack. But, sort of Symphony and the game,
the
right?
game. The
Project
good thing
the
about the game is that
game.
there's no faces. If you've seen the reveal trailer,
Yeah.
there's no faces. So yeah, that's heaven for me. I don't even have to even try, and I
Yeah,
can still
yeah.
like put out something without having to worry about the nose or anything,
Yeah,
or even
yeah.
hands. Because I mean the hands, yeah, but I'm already good with the way I do hands currently. So it just utilizes all the things I'm currently good at, and then just completely ignores the things that I'm not, which is a good thing about having an art style. If you have an art style and you hone the things that you're already good at, wasn't it Bruce Lee that said, fear the man who, I do not fear the man who practices 100 punches once, but 100, oh, was it kicks? 100 kicks once, but one kick 100 times.
Yeah,
That's what Bruce, I
yeah.
believe that's what Bruce Lee.
I don't know if it's Bruce Lee, but
Yeah,
I get the
yeah. So if I'm just practicing all the other things that I'm just good at, like to the point where it's like, world renowned, then I may never have to draw another nose ever again.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So we're gonna wrap this up because apparently we can sit here and talk forever about law and about artists and mastering skills, even though you've literally been training for this your whole life, right? And then you've been able to add on those skills one after another. Is there anything that you want to promote? Do you want to like wrap up the game and sort of Symphony and say something about your Patreon?
Um, Play the game when it comes out. Play Solo Symphony when it comes out, and subscribe to my Patreon. Thank you very much.
Okay, last time. I'm gonna ask last time about the game. So no matter how many speculations they are online, because you know what it's called in your head, like you made it. No
Yeah,
matter
I know
how
what
many,
that, but yeah.
like, are you never gonna confirm like that, like someone got the title? Because I talked to two people and I got two different answers, and I was like, oh, these both could potentially be right. Are you just gonna be like, it's just it like how are you gonna market that? Like
Well,
like
the
I
good thing
don't
about it is, I was actually going to reveal it because the game is
okay.
chapter based,
Okay.
and at the end of the first chapter, because the first chapter is actually the second chapter. Chapter zero is the first chapter. So at the end of the first chapter, which is chapter two, the name of the game was going to be like revealed because it's actually relevant to the story why the name of the game was revealed then. However, I kind of like how it looks. I just kind of like how it looks, and also it reminds me of when I'm on Twitter and then I see like this, or like on Instagram, and then I see this really really skilled like Japanese artist or like Chinese artist, and I'm like, damn, I really want to like see your stuff again, but there's no way I'm ever typing your name in. Like I have to follow you. I just have to subscribe. Maybe that's one of the reasons why like it's got, I think it's almost got like 30K subscribers like in like less than a week now. Probably the feeling is mutual, and I like that. But also it just looks cool as well, I mean, a lot of people are commenting that it kind of, the name took them by surprise alone, and that's what got them intrigued. And yeah, as like I had known the name of the game, but I've had the title look like that for the longest time, so it's kind of grown on me. Like when I see the actual name of the game, like it kind of just feels like, oh, like it's doesn't really even feel like the name of the game anymore. It feels like this code thing feels more like the name of the game, like it's really identified with the project. So
Okay, when's
yeah,
the game
I
coming out? Because I have another question. When's the game coming out? Do we have a time frame?
it'll come out when it comes out, but
Oh,
fortunately, it's in the
this
policy.
guy. And the name is
Yeah,
the name. It'll come out
yeah.
when it comes out. Like,
Indeed, it really is like that. Yeah, that's how it is. That's life.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Can you give us an exclusive and tell us the name of the game?
No.
Or a hint, like something.
Uh, no. Other than the fact that it's got the letter X in it. It's got the letter X in it. That's the only hint.
I mean, no, but we know that already. Like,
Yeah, but technically it's the algebraic sign.
can I buy a
It's actually meant to be an
vowel?
X.
Like,
Hmm?
can I buy a vowel? Like, can I
Buy
like
a vowel.
yeah, Wheel of
I
Fortune.
cannot. I cannot be bought.
I love how that turned into something else. Okay, okay, because I'm like, let's just okay, we'll do Hangman later. We'll make a mini Hangman. We'll do that. Maybe
You
that'll
know
be another.
the funniest thing about it is when I actually made the YouTube for it, I initially had the YouTube name as the actual name of the project.
Really?
So only a very small handful of people who have already deleted the comments of actually know the title of the game.
Oh,
However, when I was deleting the comments, I left one or two because I wanted because then now it actually feels like a guess amongst all the other sea of guesses.
okay.
So every so now and again, someone will actually like guess the name of the project. Will be like, oh, it's called this,
Yeah,
and then I'll
yeah,
just be like, oh, that's a very nice guess. And then someone underneath it will guess something different, not knowing that that person actually got it right. So
yeah.
it's hidden in plain sight. It's
Okay.
buried. That's a good thing about it. Like even if someone actually guesses it, it's just it's too late now. It
It's
is
too
too late.
late.
It's too late. The truth will die with you. And
Okay.
and I might even change the name like in my head like after that point anyway. So that you could be wrong at any point. Just like as long as I can arbitrarily do that,
Yeah. Uh,
that's it's so you're just gonna have to it's just gonna have to be what it is right now. That is
okay. It is
the
what it
game.
is. The
The game
game.
is the game.
The
It is
game.
what it is.
The X game. Well, too close to the X Games. Game X, right?
Game X.
Game X.
Let's
That's
go. We promoting Elon Musk.
Oh wait, I forgot. Forgot about that. Yeah, no, I forgot about that. Yeah, he's just got to take a back seat. I don't know about that because it was stuck in Twitter in my head. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for this very mysterious interview where we've learned so much and still nothing at the same time. We've been through the whole spectrum. Um, yeah, and thanks for joining us. I can't wait to play Game X and Sort of Symphony. My last question for Sort of Symphony, since it's like around like the composition of like music, right? Like because you're saying it's different from Hi-Fi Rush and like another song that will like use the beat to like go along with like the attacks and things like that. Do you think it would like teach anything? Like would someone have a better understanding of like an 8 count or like a 4 count or like any other musical concepts, or is it just
Yeah, in fact, that's literally the tutorial section of the game. I've already shared this actually. I made a whole post about it. But in the tutorial of the game, you play as Stefan, the main character, revising for his exams um the following day, in
it's
which,
just your name pronounced differently?
well, it's technically not because my name's
Okay.
Steven. It's like a PH. Stefan is like SDEF with a
Okay.
A with a
Have you ever watched
accent
Family
over it.
Matters with Urkel and he would turn into like Stefan? No?
No.
Oh. That okay. Yeah, so in Family Matters, and this is for everybody who's never seen it, Jaleel White was Urkel, but he made this machine, and anytime he would go into this machine, instead of being like Urkel, was it Steven Urkel? He would end up being Stefan because now he's not like a nerd. He was like this really like attractive guy. So that's why I thought it was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, it's just like your name, but you said it's not. So okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So he's revising for his exams and in those exams you play as him learning all the music theory that you need to be able to, use it in your attacks and wield it. So yeah, it's very and also in various instances in the game it will also remind you of those. Um in a very story-like manner. So it's not just going to be contrived. There's
Okay,
going to be characters that may not know as much that you also play as, and then that the character will explain it. Like it will make sense in the story
okay, that's
for
amazing.
specific times where you will need to do it. It's very like woven into the story how you will actually learn music theory. But yeah, the game will actually teach you music theory, like
Oh, cool.
proper teach. So yes.
That's amazing. I can just imagine your game being played in classrooms, right? Like,
Yeah, that'd be cool. I've actually got a few teachers actually DM'd
yeah.
me like, oh, like it would be amazing if like Swords and Blue, like could
Yes.
be played in school, etc. We need this. I was like, yeah, I got you.
Nice. That's amazing. So is there ever going to be like multiplayer or
It could. That's not how it's planned now. It's supposed to be
yeah.
a single player game, but it has potential to be multiplayer possibly.
Well,
It'll be a
for
bit
like
difficult to
school.
implement, but yeah, of course. It'll be bit difficult to implement, but I believe it's possible. So I think when the time comes around to consider it, I'll make it happen.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, once again, Gonna wrap it up for real now. No more questions, even though I tend to do that. That's that good old Midwest goodbye where I'm like, bye, and then I'm like, oh yeah, do you remember such and such? So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up for real now. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll
Thank
have
you for
all of
having me.
your, of course. I've been following you for a minute, so I'm not tripping. It's been like years because I was like, wait, no, was it sooner? And I just kind of binged all of your content, but I've slowly been exposed to your content over like at the bare minimum 2 years. So I'm really
Oh,
excited
okay.
to have this conversation. And
I'm glad you like my work.
yeah, it's pretty dope. It's pretty dope. And we didn't even get to really talk about like the details of sort of symphony that I've noticed, but it's just very small things. Um so yeah, just thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And I'll have all of your links attached to the podcast so people can go and support you. They can look at Game X, they can look at sort of Symphony, and they can scroll through the comments and try to guess and what's the name of the game.
You get no
And
rewards if you get it right, by the way. Like there's no prizes. So
the prize of knowing knowledge is a prize, in this day and age of, what do they call them, social media detectives. Like, I think it's just a fun thing for people to do, so I'm sure they'll somebody will do it,
well, you're free to try.
Okay, this concludes another episode of Gaming for the Culture. Thank you so much for watching, participating. If you would like to ever at any point ask our guests any questions, please join the Patreon and you'll be able to submit your questions and ask in real time. Until next time, I'm Janae Benet. Game safely. Wash your hands, wash your butt, clean your keyboard, clean your controllers, clean everything, okay? But yeah, until next time, take it easy.
Wash your butt.
Wash your butt. That's the most important part.